Hello, everyone. Welcome to Show and Tell. Welcome back to Show and Tell. It's been a while since we've done this, and this is the first one of this year, it's February 2026, and we're trying to hit the ground running. We've got a couple of really cool sessions. Um, so first off, we've got Dennis Asare, and Dennis is a senior brand designer. Um, we're very similar with the kind of branding that we like. And I met Dennis at an Apple event recently, and I just we've just kind of clicked. So it was nice to have Dennis join not only the community but also to showcase some of his work. So just a little bit of an introduction to Dennis. Dennis has 10 plus years of experience as a brand designer, doing design direction, creative direction, and typography as well. He's worked for brands including Apple, ITV, UEFA, EAFC, and Google. And his mantra is to create a world class work that pushes the boundaries, going forth, redefining the status quo. So I hope that introduction was was
Wow.
was a good introduction.
Above and
Thank-
beyond.
so thanks for joining. Thanks for joining the session, Dennis. You could just say a bit more about
Thank you.
yourself, and then when you're ready, just kind of take it away and show us what you've got.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thanks, Demi. Thanks for that wonderful introduction and getting me on board in this session. Yeah, that was that. Wow, that was a very strong introduction. I feel like what I need to show needs to marry exactly what you just said. Pressure, but yeah. So yeah, as Demi mentioned, I've been doing this for 10 plus years in the industry, working in London, working for a number of design studios and agencies. So yeah, it's been an honor. It's been a wonderful journey the past 10 plus years. And yeah, I think I'm just going to show basically a bit about myself within this presentation and then straight into an example of a project that I worked on for UEFA, if that's okay.
Wonderful.
Wonderful. Yeah. So I work in branding, advertising, content creation, and literally started off, shall I say, this year, so back in 2014, where I was interning for a few branding agencies and studios in London. And then where I had my first, shall I say, design gig was basically going back to where I studied. So I studied at UCA, University for the Creative Arts in Farnham. So I literally went back there, got a call from a design. It was a very small publishing house, and they needed a junior designer to come in to help them with some of the work they were doing. So there was more of content publishing, and I think that was where I basically got my initial, shall I say, baby steps into the industry, learning how to basically work within an agency, work, with other members of the studio, whether it's editors, content, copywriters and stuff like that. So this is just a little show reel that I put together just of some of the work I've done in the year so far. Yeah, so as I said, doing this for 10 plus years. Some places that I've worked that I've had the opportunity and privilege to work at was in Dubai, Saudi Arabia, Oman, around Middle East area. Worked in LA, but that was more of a remote work with the clients there. Worked back in Ghana, so that's where I'm from, originally Ghanaian. Parents are both Ghanaian, but I was born and raised in the UK. Went back to live in Ghana, then came back when I was around 15, 16. So yeah, so these are some of the places that I had the opportunity to work at. And within that, in Dubai. So, for example, I worked for a brand. I was doing a rebrand for a travel guide. So, basically, for example, like when you hear of TripAdvisor, or brands like Skyscanner, it's to do with like if we were to come into this place, how can we be able to find out more about, things we can do in Dubai or places we can go? So this was an example of a rebrand that I did. So the brand was called Ask Eddie. It was to do with a mobile app, a website, out of house advertising. So these were just some examples of what we put together. So I was the main designer, and I worked with the whole team of other designers within an agency in Dubai Design District. So this was the app called Ask Eddie. And then other places that I worked at have included Apple, ITV, UEFA, Budweiser. And then these are agencies that I've worked for: AKQA, Lando, MSC Saatchi, Leo Burnett, PBD, Perfect Storm. So these are a mixture of advertising agencies and branding studios here in London. And then, as Demi said, like, typography is something that I'm really, really, should I say, that's my happy place. So any project that involves me getting or using type, whether it's calligraphy, hand lettering, whatever form, whether it's on paper, whether it's digital, I'm always someone who likes to explore this area of design. And yeah, I've literally been doing this, I think, for, I don't know, since secondary school. So it was just natural for me to incorporate this in my style of design. And then ITV, so yeah, during my junior years, ITV was another place that I went to. It was after 2 years of being in the industry. I was at ITV for 2+ years. And for example, once at ITV, one of the things I did was work for their CITV summer campaign. So with that year, I think this was back in 2017. So this was Big Up Your Summer on CITV, where it was like the whole thing of, getting kids away from tablets and stuff like that. Yes, time for them to go out and play, but also, tune into CITV. So it was like they wanted me to really use my typography and see how that could pan out for this campaign. So what we did was, I created a whole typeface. Then what I did was, after that, we created a whole campaign. This is an example of how it looked for out of house. This is an example of how it looked for social media as well. So it's that time of the year, bigger, better, bubblier, Big Up Your Summer on CITV. And then another place that I worked that was at Apple. So this is a project that I worked on, for example, which was the Apple AirPods. So I remember this was back in 2021. And for this project, the main thing was like, okay, Dennis, we want to make AirPods like the biggest out of all wireless headphones. So I remember around COVID 2020, 2021, a lot of people began to shift from using wired, devices more to the wireless. So this was a project where they wanted to like make like AirPods the king of all wireless devices out there. So this was kind of like the art direction that we did a whole photo shoot, got all these models in. This was before the whole AI buzz. So this was the actual photo shoots that we did. And then this was an example of how this was beginning to be integrated into the Apple website, social media, and then this was the hero for the image. And then this is where you begin to see everything coming together. But then the main thing I just want to show you guys this evening, because of time, is some branding work that I did for UEFA. So this was back in 2023. I worked on this, but this was the UEFA Europa League final, which was held last year in the host city of Bilbao. So I believe that's the one where you had between Manchester United and Tottenham Hotspur. So my main, should I say, role in this project was to lead as a senior brand designer, but to also look at how I could bring in my skill as a typographer into this. So from the beginning, from the jump, it was like, okay, we need to do some research into the whole city, Bilbao. What are some things that makes Bilbao famous, or what is it known for? Thinking about food, culture, thinking about expressions, thinking about landmarks. So the Guggenheim Museum is, very famous or very well known. And then also has a bridge in there as well. So this is the Guggenheim Museum. I mean, this was like, I think one of the things that really drew people to the city in Spain. And with this, we were like, okay, what are some of the things that we can do to be able to pull from this to create the brand and look and feel? And then this is also a bridge which is next to the museum. This was done, I think, back in the 1980s. So we were like, how do we begin to bring these bits? It's got a bit of postmodernism, it's got a bit of, culture, and stuff like that. Also, obviously, it's the city where Athletic Bilbao Football Club plays in. So with these different things, I started working on that for the idea, as in like creating different shapes, different symbols. But what the thing about this is that how it always starts is that you need to create a simple shape. So BILBAO. So I was like, all right, what can I do in order to bring these little elements? So things like, for example, the bridge, things like the Guggenheim Museum, as I showed here, with its curves and arches, and using that to inspire what I did here. And then after doing this, we send that back to the client, and then they were like, okay, cool, we like this, but we kind of feel like we want it to straight away from the Guggenheim Museum. And we were a bit surprised because that's like the main landmark. So what we did next was to begin to explore other elements of the city. So one of the things that is very known for Bilbao is its Basque elements. So Basque is a foreign language. It's been around for I think over 500 years. It's a Neolithic European language, but is more associated to Bilbao, even though it's part of Spain. So with that, it has its own culture, it has its own element and own look and feel. So we're like, all right, cool. Let me start looking at different things like letter forms that informs this whole Basque language and Basque culture. So for example, as you can see here, these were like very, very old, should I say, sign writings that is in the city. We looked at things like letters, we looked at things like all these old posters and stuff, and all these different elements. And the thing about it is that with these elements are very unique to that space or to that area. So from there, what I did was to begin to play around and see how I can be able to create a whole letter from that. So this was all designed from scratch. So normally how I work is that I do it from paper, draw it up, and then take it into my iPad, clean it up, and then bring it into Adobe Illustrator, and then begin to play with that letter form to see how it begins to look like. So literally all the way from the I to the L to the B, all these elements were created from scratch. But then again, taking inspiration or taking all these different things that I saw within Bilbao. So the next thing is to begin to see how that begins to work within the identity. So you have it. So Europa League final. So this is already created for the brand guidelines, for example, the color, the typography, and the fonts. But then I began to bring the Bilbao into it to see how that begins to look like. Then this was also another option for it. So as you can see from the previous option, this was much more clean, much more refined. But then this is where it begins to feel a bit more strong, a bit more bold with the letters, and a bit more heavy. And then again, beginning to see how it looks like. And then another thing that we started to look at was Bilbao street art culture. So that is like, what are some things that you see if you were to go as a tourist in Bilbao? Because the main thing is that it's bringing, everyone from Europe. Again, this nobody knew that the finals was going to be between Manchester United and Tottenham Hotspurs. So when you enter the city, what do you see? What are some of the cultural elements you can feel or you can be impressed by? So this was some elements that we were looking at within the city: graffiti, street art, again, referencing typography, referencing color, referencing shapes, and then beginning to see how that informs the design as well. So I came up with these four different options taken from this. Again, what I was trying to convey with this was something that feels more traditional, something that feels different, or should I say alien, something that feels like, wow, I've not seen that done before. And then beginning to see how that begins to work within the UEFA branding. Again, take it from street art. So this was done, I used a brush pen marker. And with this, what I did was to just create all these strokes by hand. So it gives that hand element, that organic, handmade kind of feel. And then here is where we begin to see how it looks within the UEFA branding. So with all those different elements, this is what we presented to the client. For example, one of the options that I really liked or really enjoyed was when I created the one on the bottom left corner. So this was taken from the whole Guggenheim stuff. And then the top, which I just showed you from here, on the top left, on the top here side, which is also taken from this whole idea of the Bow street culture and stuff like that. But then finally, at the end, the client went for this design. So you might ask us, why did the clients go for this? I think the whole idea of it connected to the whole Basque culture was something that they were really drawn by. And then they also really liked the elements of the I and then the A. Basically, the I actually connoted back to the actual trophy, the shape of the trophy of the Europa League. And then also looking at bits like for I did with the L here, the shape of the L here. And then literally when you see this A, it's exactly iconic to the whole Basque culture and stuff. So they're like, all right, cool. We want this design and we want you to be able to create it and refine it. And as you can see, each and every single letter form is different. So the B here on the left is different from the B on the right, because we wanted to make sure that it feels unique and it also feels dynamic. And then from them selecting this as the final logo mark, my next job was to begin to see how that begins to apply to the branding. So one of the things about working with UEFA is that they have their own brand guidelines, and you as a designer, you should be able to work closely and stick to it, not like conforming out of it. So some of the things that we did was, for example, the flags, jerseys, social media. So here you have using the same UEFA brand and its look and feel. How does that begin to work on social media? Bilbao Final 2025, work the copywriters to come up with stuff like Nothing But Glory, seeing how the whole Bilbao begins to work as an animation and stuff like that, as you can see on the final right side, and then begin to see how that begins to work for out of houses as well. So we did things like Road to Bilbao Final, where we got this artwork for the trophy. So this was already designed in house, and then what I did was to begin to use that with the typography that I created. And then obviously, I mean, with the colors of the orange, black, and white, how does that whole thing begin to come together? And then obviously the finals events, we managed to get some nice images from there. So it was nice to see, like, for example, when I did the logo, how that was used on jerseys or t-shirts for, sports fans for the finals, seeing that being used within the stadium graphics, it being used on the medal, Richarlison with, the medal at the end, the finals medal, and then yeah, seeing Tottenham lift up that wonderful trophy. But yeah, so this was a whole project that spanned for about 3-4 weeks. It was quite very tight, but then it started with a whole research, looking at various ideas, looking at what could work and what doesn't work. Then after that, stress testing the design, and then from there, begin to see how it begins to be implemented throughout all these different elements. Um, so yeah, Demi, back to you.
Wow. Wow, 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 wow. Bro. That was so good. Like it's your work is so good, bro. Honestly,
Cheers, man.
honestly. And everyone in the chat is like just saying how amazing your work is, and it's so it was I love seeing brands that like tell a story, and it's
Yeah.
clear that you was very intentional about telling the story of like the culture and just bringing it home. Like it's so cool. Um, like while we're waiting for people to drop their questions, if you guys have any questions, drop them in the chat. There was one from Deborah. She wanted to know,
Okay.
um, out of all the brands. I'm trying to find the questions here. I love to. Okay, she says, "I'd love to know which version was Dennis's favorite." So, which version was your favorite
What for this particular
for the
project? The logo.
UEFA? Yeah, yeah,
Oh, okay. As in the logo marks.
yeah.
So my favorite was so as I said, it was the wine that the ones that they didn't go for. So for example,
Mm,
the the handwritten version here on the top left,
mm,
and then the one which was taken with inspiration from the Guggenheim Museum, which is
mm,
on, for example, this one. So I think
yeah.
that is on this page. Wait 1 second. So that's on this page, yeah, this one.
Mm,
So yeah, so this one was like, yeah, I really liked this one because it felt very cultural.
yeah.
Like for example, if it was like a branding for let's say Olympics, right? And it was
Mm.
probably being held in, I don't know, Singapore or somewhere. Like, you see, for example, one of the things about this is that how do you bring all these the elements of the city or the country into one final landmark,
Mm,
right? Or to one final logo mark and still make it work. To be
yeah.
example. So with this, what I was trying to show was fluidity, modernism, the sports, football, the flowiness and all that kind of stuff. And then also there's a river that goes through the city, which is also very iconic,
Mm,
which is next to the museum. So you can get that flow
right.
from the B to the L, you get what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
I see that.
But yeah, but they were like, nah, we don't want to go this direction. But yeah. So one of the things about being a designer is that you have the side where you do work that you feel like, oh, I think this is good. And then you
Mm,
have the client side where it's like, yeah, we don't want that. And
mhm.
obviously, since we're always working for clients, you need to respect their decision
Yeah.
and being able to create or being able to, think about what's in your mind and then craft, whether it's a symbol or a brand to fulfill what they want. Yeah. So I think for me, if you had to ask me, like, one of the things that I find challenging is like, yeah, being able to do exactly what the client wants against what you feel, is better. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Mm, yeah, thanks for sharing that. It's always just interesting when you have like a favorite, and clients always choose the one that's
e-
not your favorite.
exactly, exactly. Yeah.
It just comes with the package. Another question was like, how do you deal with what she said? How do you deal with when clients choose a different direction to what you believe in? What's
How do I
yeah,
choose?
how do you
Yeah.
deal with it? Yeah, like maybe emotionally, like or practically as well. Like in this case, they
um,
obviously went to a different direction. So how did you manage
exactly.
that?
So I mean, again, it takes you, for example, I mean, Demi, you've also been doing this for quite a while now, more than 10
Mm,
years now. So it
yeah.
takes you being able to like know at which point where you don't let obviously your emotions to get in, and like it's more of a thing where it's like, all right, cool. The client doesn't like this. You feel like this is really good. You've
Yeah.
explained everything. You've been in a meeting with the client for about half an hour, just trying to explain, give a good rationale, right? And the
Yeah.
client's like, yeah, I still don't want that. So then need to be able to pick your brains and
Mm,
see, okay, all right, they don't want this. So what else can we be able to go for? So again, as we
yeah.
mentioned with this project, I began to look at Basque culture. What is Basque? What is that? What's that got to do with Bilbao,
Mm,
right? Looked into things like street art, look into things like food and all these different things. And then it was like, all right, cool. Is this something we can be able to pick up from that and begin to use that to create the final element?
yeah.
So I showed in this here, presenting things like all this to the client.
Mm,
And then the client is like, okay, cool. I like what has been done with the A there for
yeah.
references. So how can we be able to pull that in? And then from there, beginning to create all these different elements. So I think it's more of being able to work with the client and be on their side and then be
Hmm.
able to create what they want rather than what you feel like, oh, they didn't choose this option,
Sure.
you know. For example, when I worked in Dubai, one of the things that I realized, the culture of working in Dubai is so different from London. Culture in Dubai is almost like, I've paid you, do what I want you to do.
Mm,
Like I don't want you to come up with a whole color theory and a whole, da, da, da. Yeah. It's like, I've paid you. I want it like this. Do it like that. I remember like a friend who works in Dubai was like, she was in a meeting with a client, and the client was like, "Oh yeah, so this logo, my son, who was probably in, year 4, year 5, drew this. So I was wondering if we could incorporate this into the design." And
Oh
then she was
God.
like, being like, "Yeah, but how can we, like, I'm trying to be respectful, but how can we take this symbol?" But the client was like, "Yeah, that's what I want." So yeah.
That's crazy.
It's
That's
it's just about
crazy.
working with the client to get them what they want,
Yeah.
really. Yeah, at the end of the day,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, like what you did, you took what they were saying on board and developed something else that still told the story, which is
Exactly.
really, really, really cool, man. I don't think there's any other questions. But like, thanks so much for showing all of that. Like, your portfolio is really like versatile.
Cheers.
And
Thank you.
it's just very, very nice to see, man. Like, honestly, how can people like keep up with you, and what's the best way for them to keep track of your stuff?
Yes, so at the moment I don't have a lot of work online apart from my portfolio. This is a link to my work.
Sure.
Just drop that
Nice,
in the
nice,
chat there.
perfect. And I'll also put the link and on the replay. I'll put it in the description as well, so people
Okay,
can keep up with you.
cool.
So what's next? What's next? Anything you're interesting you're working on at the moment that you can talk about without breaking any laws?
I mean,
Anything interesting? Yeah.
yeah. So I mean, recently I've been working on. I was working with a sports agency in London called We Are Fearless,
Mm,
and they got me to work on some branding for the London Marathon. So literally, I think we just wrapped up that today. Apart from
nice.
that, what I have coming up, so nothing as of yet, to be honest. Apart from that, but then
Mm.
I'm looking to go to New York this summertime to see if I can be able to, collaborate with some few friends, look for clients out there. But that's pretty much it. That's pretty much it. On the
Wonderful.
design side of things, I'm also looking to. I think I mentioned this to you, Demi,
Mm.
about
Yeah.
creating my own charity, which is basically meant to help and to be able to help people in the industry. So I'm
Yeah.
beginning to do things like portfolio reviews, as mentioned.
Nice.
And again, as I mentioned, I'm just trying to help young, whether it's graduates, people looking for work, all these different
Yeah.
things, to be able to find their feet in the industry. So yeah,
Wonderful, man. And we'll be looking out, and you know, any support that you need, you can definitely ask and drop it in the community as well. I'm sure people would love to collaborate with you. So,
100%.
if you like this clip, make sure you like, hit the bell, and subscribe so you see more videos like this. And if you're a Black graphic designer who wants to join a community where you can learn new skills and network with other people, hit the link in the description to join the Black Design Circle, and I'll see you there.